Wow. What the hell happened here? You know, for a storyline that started out so well and seemed to have so much potential, this Magnus James Storm angle really shit the bed in a major way in the last few weeks. The segment they had here, I could not believe how badly and how quickly they screwed this up. And it really hurts me to say that because there was no reason for it to be bad. No reason whatsoever. You had a really compelling, well-told storyline, at least until the attempted murder 2 weeks ago. You had strong performances from both guys. Magnus was great, James Storm was great, but in the execution of this segment from a production standpoint, the entire thing completely fell apart. I really want to know who produced this segment because this was so ill-conceived and so half-assed. Despite their best efforts, nothing Storm and Magnus did could save it. First problem, the timing was all wrong. Why did it take 2 weeks after Storm shoved Mickey off the train platform for Magnus to show up? If I had a fiancé that someone committed attempted murder on, I'd want a piece of that bastard the first chance I got. If Magnus was with Mickey last week, fine. But they never told us that. But supposedly, Magnus has been exploding with rage about this ever since, and so furious is he, so desperate is he to get his hands on Storm, that he waits an hour and a half into the show to call him out. Second problem, this should have been the opening segment. If we're to believe that Magnus is as livid as he's supposed to be, this should have been the first damn thing that happened. The show starts, Magnus is already in the ring screaming for James Storm to get his ass out there, or he's on a warpath backstage trying to hunt Storm down. After what Storm did, why would Magnus wait for anyone or anything? Stupid. Third problem, the whole thing was ridiculously rushed. Until now, as far as the live crowd was concerned, Magnus was coming off more like the heel, and Storm was coming off more like the face. That's the way they'd set this up. But now, the live crowd finally gets the revelation that Storm was really tricking them and he was really this evil mastermind the whole time. And it happened so quickly, without giving the people a chance to process anything, it probably left them kind of confused about how to feel. Fourth problem, the angle with the baby carriage. Oh my god. Storm has this baby carriage and makes Magnus think that he has taken Magnus's infant son. Magnus is horrified, tries desperately to get to him, and the dumbest fucking security guards on planet Earth are trying to hold Magnus back because they're more concerned with stopping a fight from breaking out than with arresting a man who, as far as they know, has just kidnapped and threatened an infant child. Oh yeah, let's all hold Magnus back and stop him from getting to Storm. Because that's what's really important here, right? That's much more important than protecting the kidnapped infant that Storm has put in danger.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
And then Storm shoves the baby carriage off the stage. Listen to me very carefully. If you're actually going to tease an infanticide angle, you need to knock that out of the fucking park. You better goddamn well treat it with every ounce of the maturity and gravity that it needs. Otherwise, it's just going to come off looking really cheap and really tasteless. And that's exactly what happened here. Magnus powers through the security guards, he races over to the carriage, sees that it's just a doll inside the carriage, and then he takes off after Storm. And then they cut away from this so quickly, it's like nothing serious even happened here at all. We don't get one quiet moment, 1 second to absorb and reflect on what just happened here. The announcers don't even use their somber voices. They call it exactly like they would call any other segment. Then the production guys immediately start playing that upbeat Impact music, and Josh Matthews and the Pope start talking about the main event. Classy. Yeah, that's real classy after the teased infant murder. And I don't give a rat's ass if it was all a fake-out, okay? Even the tease of something as dramatically horrifying as this needed some serious effort and attention put into it in order for it to feel even remotely appropriate. But it was like the production team couldn't even be bothered in the slightest. And it needed more time too, damn it! At least another few minutes to let everything breathe, really let what Storm did here sink in, but the whole thing was so fucking rushed, it was like they couldn't wait to get the segment over with. The only good thing about this was the performances of Storm and Magnus. I felt so bad for them, because you could see their hearts were in it. They were really trying hard to make this segment great, but in every possible sense, the writing and the production let them down. There were no excuses to be made for this. This segment was a complete and utter failure.
But don't boo me. You should be booing yourselves.
So Eddie Edwards beats Bobby Roode, and the Wolves choose Full Metal Mayhem for match number 4 in the Best of 5 series with the Dirty Heels. Okay. What the hell are they going to do for match number 5 then? This is the kind of match that typically ends a feud. Assuming it's going to match number 5 as these things tend to do, where do you go after Full Metal Mayhem? Exploding Japanese death match? I guess it was inevitable that they'd start adding gimmicks to these matches, wasn't it? If they wanted to do it for match 5, fine. Match 4 feels unnecessary to me, but I'm pretty burned out on the gimmicks in general, so I probably wasn't going to like it either way. Roode Edwards was solid. I don't think the Wolves are incredibly well suited to carry extended promos, but the segment was fine otherwise. Last week, Bram fought Crimson. This week, Joseph Park. Abyss is stale and going nowhere. I was a big fan of the Joseph Park character until they screwed it up. Maybe a return is in order? Possibly, but I wouldn't count on it. More likely it's just a one-time thing as part of this Bram angle. I'm not sure where it's going with him beating former stars in this open challenge every week, but it is putting Bram over nicely, so I'm not going to complain. Brooke and Awesome Kong versus the Dollhouse. It's a really nice knockouts match with a cool finish and the right person getting the pin. However, the stipulation pretty much killed all the suspense here. If the faces win, they get title shots. If they lose, they can never face Terran for the title ever. Are Brooke and Kong never going to face Terran for the title ever again? Yeah, probably not. So obviously they were going over here. You knew that before the match even started. Now, if it were something more like, if they lose, they can't get a title shot against Terran for 2 or 3 months, that you could believe. But when you go with a stipulation that makes it so implausible that the babyfaces would lose, then it kind of feels like you're dumbing the show down, and I don't like that. Nevertheless, this was one of the few segments of the show that didn't frustrate me in some way, so it had that going for it at least. Huh. I always kind of half expect to get rocks thrown at me when I question the use of Chris Melendez, but I have to call it like I see it. I just don't care for this angle. Every time Melendez shows up, they have to shove it down our throats what a hero he is, and how the sun rises and sets on him, and how everyone should love him, and blah blah blah. Truth. Chris Melendez lost a leg defending our country, which legitimately puts him on a level above all of us as a human being. But at the same time, when you constantly use this to try to get him cheap heat, use this to make him out to be some kind of big star when he really hasn't done or accomplished anything in wrestling yet, the whole thing starts to feel really forced and manipulative, and it just rubs me the wrong way. I want to cheer for Melendez, I do. But when I see him in a spot like this that he probably shouldn't be in, a spot that other people on the roster deserve a lot more, a spot that's not based on anything he's done in the ring or on the mic yet, that makes me want to not cheer for him. I just don't see him being ready for a singles push. I'm sure Eric Young can carry him reasonably well, but to be honest, a feud between them really does not interest me. And nothing that happened in this promo segment changed my mind about that. Melendez seemed competent on the mic, but not much else. And as usual, in Eric's attempts to be threatening, he just came off unintentionally funny. Quite frankly, I don't see much potential in an angle between these two. And that's also pretty much exactly how I feel about a Jesse Goddard versus Robbie E feud. Hoo boy. Let me ask you something. If one of the bromance were going to get a face push, why is it not DJZ? He's far and away the most talented wrestler, got the most crowd-pleasing offense, shown that he can get the audience behind him, and yet he's the one who gets squashed by Jesse Goddard, so Robbie E can make the save? TNA, do you have any idea how ass-backwards that is?
This is unbelievable. This doesn't make any sense.
So Jesse Goddard is getting a singles push, huh? Interesting. Are you sure he's ready for something like that? Because based on what we saw here, I'm not entirely convinced. The match goes less than 2 minutes. DJZ did everything. Flipping all over the place, bumping around, trying to get this guy over. Goddard did 2 power bombs and a Boston Crab. That was it. And he somehow still managed to be completely out of breath after the bell. His promo was decent, although he was awfully slow getting it out because he was sucking wind so much. But was him taking credit for the Bromance's 2 lame duck tag title reigns supposed to be impressive? Because it wasn't. Those were the most forgettable tag title reigns in recent memory. And now you think that's something he can brag about? Really?
I'm laughing at you.
I don't know, you guys. The prospect of this feud does not excite me. Aside from a nice-looking dropkick, Goddard has never stood out to me as a wrestler. If TNA think he's ready for this, I'll give him a shot, I guess, but he's really going to have to prove himself because I'm awfully skeptical at the moment. And if he's working against Robbie E, yeah, that's not sweetening the deal.
Please get the camera off Robbie. It really gets on my nerves.
And the last thing that happened this week was them finally making Kurt Angle versus EC3 for the world title official. Insert joke here about the match taking place on Impact instead of Slammiversary. I wonder if that had something to do with this just not feeling as big as it should have. Doing this in the opener sure didn't help. This should have been the hour main event segment, if not the main event segment. Magnus and Storm should have been the opener. Also, it didn't seem like the writers had a whole lot planned for this. The promos were good. Our Lord of Wrestling EC3 makes a great point that Angle's beaten all the greats, but they weren't undefeated like he is. And now it's time for Angle to pass that torch to the next top guy, or as Joseph Park would put it, guy on top. And he didn't come off like some petulant upstart when he said that either. EC3 came off like a guy with a legit case for himself because his push has worked as well as it has. He was very good here, and Angle was good too. But that's all there was. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of thought they'd have a little something extra going on here. This likely is the biggest match TNA could make at this point. World Champion Kurt Angle versus the undefeated up-and-comer. Probably the best example of TNA building up a new star, maybe ever. Go all out for it. Pull out all the stomps. Make it look monumental. Do something special to commemorate this. They didn't do any of that here. It was just promos. Good promos, yes, but that's it. Then Angle chooses Lashley as EC3's opponent for tonight, and this, unfortunately, was not very good. The match was too damn short for one thing, and if ever there was a time when EC3 needed to go over strong, this was it. But they're so damn paranoid about making Lashley look weak for any reason that they just couldn't let that happen. Even if it was to put over the hottest young star they have before the biggest match of his career that could cement him as guy on top for years to come. Instead, we have EC3 not looking very strong at all, only winning due to a ton of interference from Tyrus, and why a DQ wasn't called at some point, I really don't know. I thought we were past this after EC3 beat Anderson by himself. I thought we'd reached the point where you wanted this guy to be able to stand on his own without resorting to cheap tactics to win. This just felt like they were backtracking with him. Was it really necessary to protect Lashley that much? Would it have been the worst thing ever if EC3 had actually won this match at least semi-clean, looking strong before he finally gets his shot at the World Championship, which you've been building up to for months? Some people on Twitter said that using Tyrus that much to win makes EC3 look despicable and sneaky. No, it makes him look weak. At the worst possible time. And after how Magnus' world title reign turned out, consider me a little gun-shy about that type of thing. Some interference would have been acceptable, but this felt like way too damn much. I thought this was overbooked and really did not put over EC3 as effectively as it should have. And that's a good way to sum up this whole show, just not as effective as it should be. There were some good parts, a few good segments, but as a whole, I found this Impact to be pretty problematic and just not very interesting. And sadly, my excitement for Slammiversary is not very high at all. It sounds like it's shaping up to be another glorified one-night-only show. I'm not even sure when it is, to be honest with you. TNA haven't done anything to promote it from what I've seen, and the biggest match they're building up to right now won't even be on the card. I don't care if it's because of the taping schedule or whatever, that's messed up. And so was this Impact in a lot of ways, I'm sorry to say. TNA can do better than this. And this time of year, they really should be doing better. Over. Out.